So my toolkit has been a lot to do with people. So I started off working quite holistically in about the late 1990s. I worked with a pharmaceutical company at the time, and they were having problems getting their product out, and they thought it was to do with their export processes, because their shipping department weren't quite doing what they thought they were doing. But actually it wasn't that. There were so many other things that were causing them problems. Some of it was to do with their supply chain not being able to provide on time. Sometimes it was to do with stock that was in the warehouse that was being cannibalized for something else, because somebody, oh, well, I haven't got that, so I'm going to nick this bit off that bit, so therefore, and then people going, oh, I can't find this thing, but it was there a minute ago. So there was, so that was kind of me going in and talking to people about, right, okay, so let's have a look at all these areas that you need to, you need to improve, because this is happening, and this is happening, and this is happening. But anyway, so some of my favorite tools, so I've got them written down here. Problem solving. I'm sure you haven't realized that I absolutely love problem solving, just really do. We talk about fishbone analysis, which looks like that, which is my favorite. I'll talk to you about that in a minute. We talk about 5 whys that everybody thinks that reminds them of children, because it's about asking a question, drilling down to a problem 5 times or less, or maybe more sometimes, until you get to the root cause. One of my other favorite tools was process mapping, and I want to highlight this to anybody who doesn't do this. Okay, and you don't recognize that it's important in your work. So I used process mapping with an organization. They were based in Chelmsford, and this company basically, they were, and I can't tell you too much, but basically what they were doing was they were sending out, and you might have heard some of my videos, they were sending out engineers onto site. And it was customer sites, and what was actually happening was, so a call would come in to a call center in a different place. The information that came in was incorrect, so that was fed through to the operations center. So they were feeding through incorrect information through to the operations center. Okay, and actually once it got to the operations center, they were sending out a technician, so we call them a technician, on the information that they actually had. So when that technician actually turned up to site, they weren't kitted out to do it. They weren't kitted out. They weren't ready to do the work that they should do. And we're talking about a situation where they were working on people's houses, and this is external parts of the houses, so I'm not going to go into too much detail. And in certain situations, they have to talk to the council to get certain things shut down in order for them to actually gain access to certain areas of the external part of your house. Anyway, so what would then happen was that technician would have to contact the operations department, not the kind of where the call center, not the call center. They contact operations to say, I couldn't do this work. And instead, what I'm going to have to do is we're going to have to refer another person to come in. So then the next person would come in. Now, you've got in this company, you had certain levels. So like level 1 did this much, and then level 2 did this, and then level 3. And actually what was constantly happening was a level 1 person would go in and they couldn't effect a repair. And then the second one would go in, they couldn't effect a repair. And then the third one would go in and they probably could. When we process map this, okay, so what we're talking about when I'm talking about process mapping, I'm talking about identifying, right, okay, what happens here, then next, and then next, and then next. There's a thing, if you have a look, you can look at this up. It's called, my favorite is swim lane mapping. So it's basically when you've got lots of different departments where this works in, because I think this works really, really well. So swim lane map, it goes from one department to another department, to the next department, to the next department, etc. And in the end up, these guys worked out from swim lane mapping while I was with them that they could save £250,000 just by making sure that, firstly, the information that came through from the call centre was correct, because we're talking about a paragraph, a couple of sentences perhaps, to get that accuracy of information through to that first line engineer or technician. Then the second thing was making sure that all the technicians were all trained up. So we call this cross-skilling. Okay. So making sure that these guys were actually cross-skilled, so that if they would be level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, they would all be able to cover each other's work. So actually, if you got somebody who was going in and they were at the wrong level because they got the wrong information, they could still do that work. But it was going to save them £250,000. Yes, there'd be a little bit of offset for training, but actually it's a lot of money, so that's why, I mean, I am a bit of a geek when it comes down to it. So I get very excited when we look at process mapping.